You hear the words consciousness and awareness thrown around all the time these days, but really what meaning or significance does it have to us in our daily lives? In this video, I'm going to talk about self-awareness and 12 ways we can start to build more self-awareness in our lives. Self-awareness is a gift. If we can look at it with the right set of eyes or with the right perception, we can understand that self-awareness gives us absolutely everything. It gives us complete control over our lives if we can understand it for what it is. Now, that said, the self-awareness that we have as human beings, much of it is kind of built in and automatic in terms of how we understand ourselves to be human beings. We understand ourselves to be separate from the animal kingdom, from the plants, and we can differentiate ourselves as individuals. But what we don't often understand is that we are creating our world. And oftentimes it's an opposite type of perception where we are living in the world and reacting to it. But as we start to have and cultivate deeper sense of self-awareness, we can understand that if we're taking more responsibility, becoming more accountable for everything from our daily habits to our emotions to our thoughts to the relationships that we are creating, then we can start to really build a more holistic sense of who we are, what we are putting out there, and how we can start to gain a better clarity and insight and peace with our place in the world. And ultimately, we go from being a more individualized single person to a more connected being within our community and within the world. So that said, I'm going to dive into 12 of the different ways to pay attention to how self-aware you are, or to become more self-aware in your life. Now, number one is observing your daily routines. What do you do when you first wake up? Do you go straight for your cell phone? Do you get up to have a cup of coffee? Do you make a phone call or text somebody, text a significant other, or you just get up, get in the shower, throw some clothes on, and go to work? These are things that we don't often think of, and then we spend years doing these same things, and oftentimes we'll find that we're not fulfilled, or we're not happy, or we're stressed out. And it becomes important to kind of dial it back and understand what you're doing from the first moments you wake up. These are habits. These are things that often we don't consciously recognize what we are creating patterns with. So I'm not saying anything specific that is a good routine to do, or something that's preferable to anything else in this video. So all I'm doing is I'm giving you a sort of a template for some of these things to just pay attention to. Now that said, as you're paying attention to these habits, be as objective about it as possible. And this is something that is very difficult, or it's often difficult when we don't have a broader sense of self-awareness in our lives and understanding what it is we're creating. We can be very subjective and kind of defend our actions as being just what we do, and that's okay because that's who we are, so I'm just going to keep doing that. But oftentimes our habits and our routines that aren't conscious routines, they're not always the best routines. So being able to dial back your opinion of your routine and just kind of see it for what it is a very healthy way to start to to take stock and take inventory in what you are creating from the first moments you wake up to the moments that you're going to sleep. Number 2, beliefs. These are something that we often take pride in. We brag about our beliefs. Well, I believe that this, or I believe that. But oftentimes our beliefs are holding us back from perhaps a greater truth. And it's fine if you have beliefs, but a lot of times beliefs are like lenses. Lenses have 2 purposes. Let's say eyeglasses. Eyeglasses are meant to be used to focus on something, like if you have reading glasses. They're meant to focus on the letters and the words as you read. But the second purpose is for those lenses to not be seen. So beliefs are a very similar way. We have these beliefs and they make us focus on the world in one way or another. And we understand or perceive the world to be that way based on that belief. But then often we don't evaluate our own beliefs. A lot of times, soberingly, if that's a word, we inherit a lot of these beliefs from our parents. And because they're our heroes, they're the primary archetypes in our lives, we simply don't question these beliefs and we just grow up and end up passing them right along. So it's good to take inventory of our beliefs as well. What is it that we are focusing on the world with? Because a lot of beliefs, and I know for myself, a lot of these beliefs have proven to be untrue. But look, I'm not saying all beliefs are bullshit. Because some things we will never know until we die. Say, what happens after death? Beliefs can be okay. They can serve a purpose. Say, a belief about what happens in life after death. Sometimes we don't know. Well, we don't know. So in place of knowing, we have to, in lieu of information or facts, we have to put belief in place of that. All I'm saying is take a look at what you believe whenever possible and evaluate that objectively. Number 3, emotions. We're human beings, so we all have emotion. But oftentimes, we will get lost in our emotions. Emotions have a way of creating a sort of tunnel vision when we find ourselves in an emotion. When you're feeling a certain emotion, say anger or sadness, nothing else exists but that one emotion. Our vision becomes tunnel vision, and all we see, all we're perceiving is that one thing. One of the things we can do to bring more self-awareness into our lives is to pay attention to our emotions as they're coming up. As we start to experience a rise in anger, or a rise in sadness, a rise in anxiety, or even joy and happiness. Actually, those are easier to perceive because we like to be in them. So it's comfortable to feel those emotions. So it's possible to use that as a tool to be able to observe an emotion. Now, emotions have a funny way of finding other people to place the blame on. I know I've said it so many times in the past, but you'll hear very often, and you may say it yourself, you are making me feel this way. He made me, she made me feel like shit. When we are not self-aware, we let other people be in control of our emotions. Nobody can really make us feel any certain way. But what we do is we allow other people to say or do things that trigger us. Essentially, though, that trigger is within us. One shift in language that I like to use, instead of saying this person made me feel a certain way, is to simply say this person triggered me. So that simple shift creates more of an accountability in your emotional state, so that instead of blaming the other person or projecting an emotional state that is yours onto another person, you're starting to take back your accountability and personal responsibility for your own emotions. And this is going to help you become more self-aware of your emotions as they come up. Number 4, self-talk. Self-talk is a tough one. I still find myself having trouble with it sometimes, but you know when you've said, "Oh man, I am such an idiot," or "I am such a this or that." And nobody really deserves to talk to ourselves that way, but we still do. We talk down to ourselves as if we're talking to somebody that we hate. And that's the problem, is that we often have a negative perception about ourselves, and don't realize that. We're not aware how we're treating ourselves. So being able to pay more attention to your self-talk and how you are treating yourself is a very sobering way to understand how you value yourself. Number 5, gratitude. How grateful are you? How thankful are you? How often do you thank other people? How many times during one day do you feel grateful for your life? Now, I'm not going to say that I'm the best person at this, honestly, but I do my best to give credit where it's due. Just be thankful for people when they're friendly, when they're kind, when they do things, they go out of their way to do something for me that they didn't have to. I really appreciate those kinds of things. And I really could have more gratitude in many places in my life. So, as I know this is something that is not a challenge for me, but just something to pay more attention to, I invite you to pay attention to what you're grateful for, what you're thankful for the people in your lives, for your health, for your job, for your family, for your friends. It really doesn't end. And the more gratitude that you can create in your life, even for the little things, you'll find it becomes easier to give more gratitude and to receive more from people because you recognize their gifts. Number 6, relationships. Who do you spend your time with? Do you spend your time with people who reflect who you are? What your emotional state is? They say, you've probably heard this, you are the average of the 5 people you spend most of your time with. So take inventory in your relationships. What healthy relationships do you have? What potentially toxic relationships do you have? You know the ones. You know the phone call that you will always pick up. And you know the phone call that you never want to pick up. It's a very easy way to distinguish between healthy and toxic relationships. Also, how often are you paying attention to and nurturing your healthy relationships? Do you find yourself giving more time to the soul suckers and the emotional vampires and the narcissists in your life? Or are you nurturing relationships with people who challenge you to grow, people who give their love unconditionally without strings? Number 7, diet. What are you eating? When are you eating? How are you eating? There are a few aspects of diet that are very important to take a look at. Number 1, what are you eating? Are you eating junk? How often are you eating junk? Or are you eating foods that are going to nourish you? Are you eating high quality, preferably organic, but at least more whole foods, less processed foods that are going to give you a better source of fuel? Whether you're vegetarian or meat eater, I'm not going to get into that here, but pay attention to what you're eating. What's the quality of food you're considering suitable for your body? Also, how are you eating? Are you sitting down and taking time to enjoy what you're eating? Or are you rushing to get all this food down your gullet so you can move on to the next thing, and then eating so much food so fast that you don't notice that you're full? A lot of people overeat because they eat too fast and they don't consider how much they actually need for one sitting. The third aspect of this is, when are you eating? Are you eating all the time? Are you never eating? Are you eating super late at night before bed? I'm not going to say any of these things are right or wrong, but consider that for yourself. Is it healthy? Does it feel good? Now, you can eat a lot of sugar too, and that feels good in the moment, or at least it tastes good, but is it right for you? Is it good for you? Number 8, movement. Are you moving? Are you exercising? Are you sedentary? Are you lethargic? Do you sit around and watch TV all day or all night? Or do you get up and go out for a walk, go for a run? Feel yourself in your body. Get a high intensity workout. Bring your heart rate up. Are you doing any of these things? Do you feel good if you're doing these things? Do you not feel good if you're not doing these things? So movement, how much we're moving, how we're moving our bodies, also how we're holding our bodies. Our posture is a very important thing to take a look at as well. The way that we show up to the world is oftentimes dictated by the way that we are presenting ourselves physically. If you see somebody walking around like this all the time, do they appear confident? Do you feel confident when you're walking around like this? So pay attention to that as well. Number 9, body care. What are you putting on your body? Are you wearing makeup? Do you use soap? Do you use shampoo, conditioner? What kind of ingredients? Do you even know what's in your shampoo? I can't pronounce half of the, well, probably 3/4 of the chemicals that are on the ingredients list of shampoos. There are a lot of toxic ingredients out there. So much of this information is up for debate. But look at what you're putting on your skin. Look at what you're washing your hair with. Look at what you're putting on your face at night. Are you cleansing your face or your body regularly? These are some things to take a look at in your bathing routine. Also, what kind of companies you're supporting, say razors. Do they test on animals? Is that something you're okay with? Remember that you're voting with your dollar. If you're buying products that regularly test on animals, is that something that you want to be representing and voting for? Number 10, vices. What are your vices? Yeah, I know you've got one. I know I have a few. I know I've had more in the past, and I've worked on those and understood that they weren't really serving me anymore. We often want to turn our brains off or get a dopamine rush from something. We want to feel good. And some of these vices make us feel good. They come at the expense later of withdrawing from these things and needing those things to feel good. And then when we don't have those things, we crave for them. How much are you craving your vices? And how much do you suffer when you don't have them? Number 11, stress management. How much stress do you have in your life? What do you do to manage that? How do you deal with the stress that you have? Where is it coming from? What is stress to you? Stress, I've heard, is completely self-created. We like to put it into this box and say, oh, I'm just stressed out. But taking a look at what our stress is, what it feels like, where we perceive it to be coming from, and then how we're dealing with that is incredibly important. Stress is in a sense synonymous with a fear of something. How you are dealing with that stress, how you are expressing it, or maybe how you are channeling that into something like, say, exercise or meditation or some other modality where you can dissipate or create a perspective about what that stress is and where it's coming from. Stress management isn't something that I necessarily perceive as being exactly that. I see stress, as I said, as a fear or some other emotion that we pass off as just something that we have to deal with in work, or we work too much and we're burned out and we're just stressed out and we kind of pass it off. I want to invite you to put some perspective on that stress, see where that's coming from, and maybe what that emotion underlying the stress actually is. Number 12, and this one is huge, media consumption. We've got Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, and I just heard of some new one with advertisements that come before the videos for this new streaming service, and it's allowing us to have media for free at our fingertips, on our cell phones, all the time. You're watching this video, you're consuming a certain media. How much media are you consuming? Are you consuming it consciously? Are you consuming in a way that is passive? In other words, are you simply watching something for entertainment? Are you watching it for distraction? Are you watching it for education? How much media are you consuming, and is it helping or is it hurting? At the end of the day, it's very nice to be able to just shut our brains off, go into passive mode, and relax ourselves with something that we can put on the screen and let it drone on in the background. But just notice it. How much time are you watching TV? How much time are you on your phone? How much pornography do you watch? These are just some of the things that I invite you to take a look at to create more awareness in what kind of life you're creating for yourself. What kind of world are you surrounding yourself in? Because there's only so much of the world that we can see at one time, and it is our choice to put ourselves in many of these situations, whether it be your family, your friends, your lovers, significant others, your job. We are here as beings with free choice, but we often don't think we have choices a lot of the times. The fact is, we have so much more choice and the power of our free will than we think we do. So I trust that some of these suggestions could be beneficial to your life to start to add a bit more self-awareness and understanding as to how you are creating your world. When we understand we have more choices, we have more power. I am here to empower you as I am empowering myself to remind me of this information to incorporate into my life. I pray that this video could be at least somewhat helpful for you and give you some pointers and tips and tidbits, whatever you want to call it, to incorporate in your life and start to build some more self-awareness so you can understand how you're creating your own world. I'm not going to judge. I got my own issues. I got unconscious patterns, and I'm still working on them. If you like this video, give it a like, hit that subscribe button, and let me know if I missed anything. If there's something that you feel would be super beneficial, maybe even something I should do another video on, please leave it in the comments section. And for now, I'll see you on the next one.